My whole family thought I was a failure, until my brother hired a detective, and that was his biggest mistake. Hey everyone! Welcome to Tell Me Reddit, the channel where we dive into the most interesting, dramatic, and unbelievable stories from Reddit. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support the content. It really helps us bring you more amazing stories. So sit back, relax, and let's jump into another incredible Reddit story. Let's get one thing straight. I've always been the background character in my own family's movie. The one with minimal screen time, who only exists to prop up the real star of the show, my brother, Adam. Adam is the kind of guy parents dream about. Athletic, charismatic, the golden child from birth. He was the one with the trophies, the scholarships, the endless praise at family gatherings. Meanwhile, I was the quirky one. The kid who preferred books to backyard football, who struggled to fit into my parents' very narrow definition of success. My dad, a former college athlete turned business owner, never quite knew what to do with a son who had zero interest in sports or stock investments. My mom wasn't much better, she just quietly went along with whatever narrative Dad said, nodding approvingly as he rambled about Adam's bright future. And me? I was tolerated. Barely. "Why don't you take after your brother?" became the most repeated phrase of my childhood. As if I could just download a software update and turn into him overnight. Adam thrived in the spotlight. I disappeared into the shadows. Every family dinner was a performance, starring Adam as the lead. The conversation revolved around his job, sales, naturally, because of course he could charm his way through anything, his investments, his beautiful suburban home. It was a well-rehearsed show. I attended out of obligation, sitting through hours of backhanded compliments and well-meaning advice. "How's that little job of yours going?" Mom would ask, in a tone reserved for hobbyists who knit sweaters for their cats. "Still doing computer stuff?" Dad would add, barely containing his disappointment. Meanwhile, Adam would flash his perfect smile and regale the table with another tale of his latest business win, throwing in some unnecessary detail about his stock portfolio for good measure. They never asked what I actually did, and I never bothered to correct them. If I had to pinpoint the exact moment I realized I was the family disappointment, I'd say it was somewhere between Adam winning his first MVP trophy and my parents forgetting to show up to my school's art exhibit. Childhood was a long series of lessons in how to be overlooked. Adam was the golden boy from the start, big personality, bigger talent, always surrounded by adoring fans. And then there was me. Quiet, awkward, more interested in fantasy novels than football drills. If Adam was the blazing sun in our family, I was the dim flicker of a candle no one noticed. The differences weren't just in personality, they were in the way we were treated. When Adam scored the winning touchdown in high school, Dad bought him a car. When I won a statewide academic competition, I got distracted. "That's nice," before the conversation turned back to Adam's latest game. I learned early that my achievements would never measure up. School wasn't much better. I wasn't bullied exactly, I was just invisible. I didn't fit in with the athletes, the popular kids, or even the overachievers. I had a few close friends, fellow misfits who spent lunch in the library with me, but beyond that, I existed on the fringes. Meanwhile, Adam ruled the halls. Everyone knew him. Teachers adored him. Coaches practically worshipped him. If I mentioned my last name, people's eyes would light up. "Oh, you're Adam's brother?" And then, inevitably, the flicker of interest would die out when they realized I wasn't like him at all. The family comparisons never stopped. "Adam had straight A's in high school," Mom would remind me as she glanced at my report card, as if a 3.5 GPA was somehow disgraceful. "Your brother was always such a natural leader," Dad would say when I hesitated to speak up at the dinner table. Adam was the standard. I was the failure to launch. Even when I went to college, something Adam never bothered with because he was too busy making real money, it wasn't enough. The courses I loved were dismissed as impractical. When I struggled, they used it as proof that I wasn't cut out for anything real. And when I eventually dropped out, well, Let's just say I became the family's favorite cautionary tale. Dropping out of college was supposed to be my defining failure, proof that I was as aimless as my family always suspected. Except it wasn't. While my parents and Adam whispered about my poor decisions at family gatherings, I was busy building something. At first, I worked odd jobs, tech support, freelance coding, whatever paid the bills. I taught myself more than any overpriced college ever could, and soon, I started landing real clients. I had a knack for cybersecurity. Companies needed protection, and I knew how to outthink hackers because, well, I had always been a bit of a troublemaker online. Eventually, I co-founded a security firm with a friend. We started small, offering consulting services to startups, but within a few years, we were handling contracts from major corporations. I worked insane hours. I sacrificed sleep, relationships, weekends. And it paid off. By the time I turned 30, I was worth more than I ever thought possible. My name was on patents, I had equity in multiple tech companies, and I had investments that kept growing. I wasn't just successful, I was thriving. But my family? They still thought I was the kid working minimum wage at a tech shop. I never bothered to correct them. Every time I visited, I got the same passive-aggressive comments. "Still doing that computer thing?" Dad would ask, sipping his beer like my entire career was some kind of hobby. "Maybe you should think about getting a stable job." Mom would add, frowning as if I were one missed paycheck away from moving back into my childhood bedroom. And Adam? He didn't ask about my life at all. Too busy talking about his latest business deal, which usually involved selling overpriced properties to people who couldn't afford them. It was almost comical how blind they were. I lived in a modern apartment, had zero debt, and drove a car that I could pay off in cash. Meanwhile, Adam, Mr. Perfect, was juggling mortgages, loans, and a lifestyle he could barely sustain. But to my family, he was still the success story. And I was still the disappointment. Family gatherings were like reality TV episodes I never wanted to be part of, full of drama, bad acting, and a leading man who never failed to steal the spotlight. Adam, of course, was the star. Every family dinner, he walked in like royalty, flashing his newest designer watch, talking about his latest business venture, which, from what I could tell, was just convincing rich people to buy houses they couldn't afford. My parents hung on to his every word, nodding and laughing, while I sat at the far end of the table, as invisible as ever. And then came the usual routine. "So, still doing, what is it again? Computers?" Dad asked, pausing his steak cutting to give me a pitying glance. "Cybersecurity," I corrected, knowing full well it wouldn't matter. Mom tilted her head like I had just spoken in a foreign language. "Oh, well. I guess that's nice." Adam smirked, swirling his wine. "Man, I keep telling you, you should let me set you up with a real job. My firm is looking for assistants." Assistant. The word made my blood boil. I could buy and sell his entire firm 3 times over, and he thought I should be fetching coffee. But that was Adam. In his world, I was still the awkward little brother who had never quite figured life out. I should have just let it slide like always. Nodded, smiled, endured. But this time, something in me snapped. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "That's really generous of you, Adam. But I'm good. My computer thing just signed a 6-figure contract last week." Silence. For the first time in my life, my parents actually looked at me. "6 figures?" Mom echoed, blinking. Dad coughed, like the number offended him. "For computers?" Adam chuckled, but it was forced. "Well, that's cute, but you know, real success is about stability. Building something sustainable. Not just getting lucky." Ah, there it was. The classic Adam defense. If it wasn't his success, it didn't count. I took a sip of my drink, smiling. "Funny. Because my luck just bought me a second property last month." Another pause. Another shift in energy. Adam's jaw clenched. Mom nervously rearranged the napkins. Dad looked like he needed another beer. And for the first time ever, I enjoyed a family dinner. If there's one thing my family doesn't do well, it's handling surprises. And me being successful? That was the biggest plot twist of their lives. After that dinner, I could tell something had shifted. Mom started calling more often, always under the guise of just checking in. Dad, who barely acknowledged my job before, suddenly had a lot of questions about that cyber stuff, as if he was trying to figure out if I was running some kind of scam. And Adam? Oh, Adam was pissed. See, Adam thrived when he was the center of attention. The golden boy. The one everyone looked up to. The idea that I, his socially awkward, directionless little brother, was doing better than him. It was unacceptable. So he did what any egotistical, insecure older brother would do. He hired a private investigator. It started small. A weird email here. A flagged login attempt there. Nothing major, just little things that didn't sit right. Given my profession, I was naturally paranoid about cybersecurity, so I ran a deep scan on my personal accounts. And that's when I saw it. Someone had tried to access my credit report. I traced the request back to a private investigation firm. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know exactly one person in my life who would be desperate enough to go digging into my finances. Adam. At first I laughed. Because of course he would. He needed proof that I was lying, that I was actually some broke loser faking my way through life. I could just picture the meltdown he must have had when the investigator found nothing but legitimate wealth, properties, and investments. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was my own brother violating my privacy, trying to discredit me just so he could keep his fragile ego intact. Well, two could play that game. If Adam wanted to dig into my life, it was only fair that I return the favor. And what I found? Oh, it was glorious. If Adam thought I wouldn't retaliate, he clearly hadn't been paying attention for the last 30 years. So, I did what any younger sibling with access to high-level cybersecurity tools would do. I started digging. Legally, of course. Mostly. At first, I expected to find the usual. A few overdue credit card bills, maybe some excessive spending. But what I uncovered? Oh, it was so much better. Turns out, the golden boy wasn't so golden after all. For starters, Adam was drowning in debt. Not just a few missed payments kind of debt, but 3 maxed-out credit cards, unpaid back taxes, and a mortgage he could barely keep up with kind of debt. The lavish lifestyle he flaunted at family dinners? Completely funded by loans and financial juggling. Then there were the other things. Multiple DUI arrests, conveniently swept under the rug thanks to some well-placed favors. A few flagged reports from Child Protective Services, something about domestic disturbances at his house. No active charges, but enough red flags to make my stomach turn. And my personal favorite? He was behind on payments for both of his luxury cars, one of which had already been repossessed. That shiny SUV he always bragged about. It wasn't even in his name. So while my parents sat around gushing about how successful their eldest son was, he was one missed payment away from financial ruin. Irony, thou art beautiful. The next family dinner was going to be fun. I printed out a neat little report with all my findings, nothing illegal, just public records and financial statements that anyone with the right tools, or a basic sense of curiosity, could uncover. I wasn't planning to start a war. But if Adam wanted to play dirty, I was more than happy to watch his kingdom burn. Family dinners had always been a predictable affair, Adam's personal TED Talk on success, my parents nodding along in approval, and me playing the role of the invisible man. But tonight? Tonight was different. I walked in with a folder tucked under my arm, feeling like an executioner hiding an axe. I wasn't sure how this was going to play out, but one thing was certain. Adam had spent years building a throne on a foundation of lies, and I was about to knock it over. Dinner started the way it always did. My mother fretted over the roast, my father recited a 5-minute speech on hard work and responsibility, and Adam jumped in with a perfectly timed monologue about a huge sale he had recently closed. Honestly, it's exhausting being the one holding everything together, he sighed, cutting into his steak with unnecessary force. I swear, between managing clients and making investments, it's like I never get a break. I smirked. Yeah? Sounds rough. Adam leaned back, nodding. You wouldn't get it, man. High-level finances, networking, real estate, it's a different world. But hey, if you ever need a job, I can always find you a desk somewhere. There it was. The condescension. The assumption that I was still some directionless loser scraping by. I placed the folder on the table. That's kind of you, Adam. Really. But before I consider your generous offer, I think you should take a look at this. Silence. Adam's smirk wavered as he picked up the folder, flipping it open. My parents leaned in, curious. And then, the unraveling began. His face paled as he scanned the pages. The mortgage debts. The credit card statements. The records of missed payments. The neatly compiled documentation of his financial train wreck. Mom gasped. Adam, what is this? Dad frowned. You told us you were doing fine. Adam snapped the folder shut, his knuckles white. This is garbage. Where did you even get this? I shrugged. Public records. Anyone with the right tools can find out the truth. His jaw clenched. This is an invasion of privacy. Oh, you mean like hiring a private investigator to dig through my life? I tilted my head. Funny how that works. For the first time, Adam had nothing to say. My parents sat in stunned silence, the illusion of their perfect son crumbling before them. And for the first time in my life, I was the one at the table with the upper hand. The silence stretched uncomfortably across the dinner table, thick and suffocating. My parents exchanged glances, trying to process the collapse of the Golden Boy myth. Adam, still gripping the folder, looked like he was debating whether to flip the table or storm out. I almost hoped he would. Mom, ever the peacemaker, was the first to speak. This must be a mistake. Adam, you never mentioned any of this. Adam forced a laugh, but it came out thin and brittle. Because it's exaggerated. Blown out of proportion. I mean, who doesn't have a little debt? Dad narrowed his eyes. Debt is one thing. But 3 mortgages? Maxed out credit cards? And you told us everything was fine. Adam clenched his jaw, looking between them, then back at me. So this is what this is about. You come here, stir up trouble because you're bitter? I scoffed. Bitter? Adam, you hired a private investigator to dig through my life, trying to find something to prove I was still a failure. And now that the truth's out, I'm the problem? His hands balled into fists on the table. I just wanted to know the truth. And now you do. I shot back. Only it wasn't the truth you expected. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples like the weight of reality was too much for him. We need to figure out how to handle this. Adam turned to them, desperate now. Handle what? So I made some financial missteps. So what? I've got it under control. Mom nodded quickly, grasping for any justification. Of course, sweetheart. I'm sure it's just a rough patch. Dad, however, wasn't convinced. A rough patch? We co-signed one of those loans, Margaret. Mom paled. We what? Adam shifted uncomfortably in his chair. It's fine. I have a plan. I let out a sharp laugh. You mean the plan where you keep up appearances and hope no one notices the cracks? Adam glared at me, his mask of confidence slipping further by the second. For once, he had no comeback, no charming spin to save him. And honestly, it was pathetic to watch. Mom turned to me then, her eyes pleading. Can't you help him? And there it was. The real reason I was suddenly worth acknowledging. I pushed my chair back, standing up. You know, I thought for once you'd see me as more than a backup plan. But no. You only care now because Adam's sinking. Mom started to protest, but I was done. He made his choices. I made mine. And for once, I'm not cleaning up his mess. Adam stared at me, something unreadable flickering across his face. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was shame. Maybe, for the first time, it was the realization that he wasn't untouchable. Either way, I didn't care. I grabbed my coat and walked out, leaving the wreckage behind me. The drive home was quiet, but my mind wasn't. It replayed everything: the desperation in Adam's voice, the shock in my parents' eyes, the way my mother had asked me, "Can't you help him?" Like I owed him something. Like I owed them something. For years I had let them define me. The disappointment. The lesser son. The one they only acknowledged when they needed something. But now they knew the truth. And instead of pride, or even a simple apology, all they saw was an opportunity. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could do for them. And I was done. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls from Mom. A handful of messages from Dad, all vague attempts at damage control. And Adam? Radio silence. I ignored them all. Instead, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I started setting boundaries. I blocked Adam's number first. Then I sent a single message to my parents: "I need space. Don't contact me for a while." Their replies came instantly. "Mom, honey, we need to talk about this as a family. Don't shut us out. Dad, be reasonable. This is a difficult time for your brother." Ah, there it was. The same old script. Think about Adam. Don't make this about you. You're overreacting. I stared at the messages, then deleted them without responding. The first week of silence was strange. I had spent my whole life orbiting around my family, trying to prove myself, trying to be worthy of their attention. Without that, I felt untethered. But slowly, something shifted. I went on a run without my phone, no longer waiting for a call that wouldn't come. I spent time with friends who actually knew and respected me. I threw myself into work, focused on the career I had built with my own hands. And you know what? I felt lighter. I had spent years carrying the weight of my family's expectations, their judgments, their constant dismissal of my worth. And now that I had set it down, I realized I never had to pick it up again. 2 weeks later, Mom left me a voicemail. Her voice was softer this time, uncertain. "We miss you. Just call me when you're ready." For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't sure if I ever would be. The thing about distance is that it gives you clarity. And with every passing day, the fog of obligation and guilt lifted just a little more. I didn't miss the constant pressure to prove myself. I didn't miss the forced family dinners, the passive-aggressive comments, the way my achievements were always diminished. What I missed, if anything, was the version of my family I had always wished they could be. But that version never existed. And maybe it was time I stopped waiting for it to appear. 3 weeks into my self-imposed exile, I got an email from Adam. Short. Terse. "We should talk." No apology. No acknowledgement of what he did. Just an expectation that I would come running the moment he called. I didn't reply. A few days later, another email arrived. This time, it was longer. Desperate. "Mom and Dad are upset. You've made your point. Just come back already." Made my point? As if this was some kind of tantrum? I closed my laptop, exhaled, and let the anger pass. I had already wasted too much energy on this. Life, outside of the mess that was my family, was good. No, great. I got a promotion. Moved into a bigger apartment. Traveled for work and actually enjoyed it. For the first time, my success wasn't measured by their standards. It wasn't defined by their approval. It was mine. And that freedom? It was intoxicating. Then, one day, I got another message. But this one wasn't from Adam. It was from Mom. "We're coming to visit." No question. No request. Just a statement. The old me would have panicked, would have bent over backward to accommodate them. But the new me? I typed back, "No, you're not." Her response came quickly. "We need to talk." I hesitated. Then I typed out my final answer. "I don't think we do." And just like that, I felt something break. Not me. Not my spirit. But the invisible chain they had wrapped around me for years. I was free. Somewhere, in another timeline, maybe things would have been different. Maybe I would have had parents who saw me, a brother who respected me, a family that valued me for who I was rather than what I could give them. But I didn't. And that was okay. Because I had myself. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. The end.